Hello everyone, and welcome to Living by the Law, the podcast discussing fictional worlds and how wondrous and ridiculous they are. My name is Matt, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jude and Guy. Living by the Law is not currently sponsored. If you'd wish to sponsor us, find the closest uninhabited island. Declare sovereignty, and may your rule be just and fair. When you start to get bored, write your sponsorship message in the sand. We will hear you. We always do.
Noble kings, mighty warriors, and grand kingdoms. This time on Living by the Law, we look at the great kingdoms of men in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings mythos and how their rise and fall shapes the world. This episode contains spoilers for the prologue of The Lord of the Rings, and more likely Rings of Power later seasons.
I am eternally plagued by Sisyphean tasks because, as of recent, as you boys know, as I will open up to the audience for a moment, I was recently diagnosed with ADHD and receiving treatment for it. What do you need? What do you need? Are you good?
It's like cancer. Whatever this I was diagnosed with, it's usually like in TV shows and everything, it's usually cancer.
I was diagnosed with cancer.
He's about to tell us there's cancer live on it.
I said, as you guys already know, I was diagnosed with ADHD, which means that I am now able to actually try and get shit done during the day. It has, however, plagued me with an incurable need to find out if I am doing something the correct way. Water. No one is drinking enough water. Apparently, I need to drink 3.5 liters a day. That's 3.5 of the large drink bottle that I have at the desk.
I actually looked this up. That's actually not true. The 2 to 3 liter number comes from all liquids you're taking the whole day. So that includes meals, liquids in food, liquids in stuff like soup or milk you're drinking or coffees. So that's all liquids in a day.
Regardless, I'm drinking the wrong amount of liquid. My piss is not clear. If you research anything about, I have a nice coffee set up at home. And I
totally thought he was about to say, I have a nice cock.
I have a nice cock at home.
He left it home.
I got it from Facebook Marketplace. It was very cheap. I also I have nice quality coffee equipment. I'm like, this is nice. I can make an alright latte out of this. I wonder if there's something better I could be doing. Hellhole. Years of effort. Literally, one of the main guys who talks about it calls his followers coffee weirdos and specifically says, this is not a hobby you get into if you just want to make a coffee. This is for people who want to spend half an hour playing with coffee. And that's lovely. And that's whimsical. But I got a fucking job to get to. I got shit to do. But as soon as I know that there's a better version that I can be chasing, I am plagued by this Sisyphean task of eternally trying to figure out what the fuck I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, you've gone from one extreme to the other.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've gone from just accepting like the bare minimum to having to get the maximum out of everything.
Yeah. That's 100% correct.
Whenever I hear of Sisyphus and tasks, I saw a meme the other day that was Sisyphus only had one repeating task forever. I have 20.
Yeah.
I wish I was Sisyphus.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Drink water? Why? To piss again?
To piss again?
This eternal. I scream. I need release from this eternal damnation.
You guys' brains work in a way that just makes me confused sometimes.
Do you not think about? I will go whole days without drinking a sip of water and then realize, oh shit, I need to drink water because it's good for me. Not because I want to drink water, because I need to. And then I'll just down like 4 water bottles. I'll go to the sink, fill up a water bottle, I'll down it at the sink, and then I'll go, I need more water. And I'll fill it up again and down it again, and then I'll fill it up again, and I'll like walk away and like
The second one's always harder.
It is.
And I don't know why that is. I understand. It's an ADHD thing. Leave it alone.
What do you want about? Okay,
What?
no, but like,
Don't you forget to drink water?
What do you do if you haven't drunk water all day?
I drink water throughout the day.
What do you
do if you haven't? What if you forget?
What if you haven't got a chance? What if you're out all day?
Oh, like, then I get thirsty, and then I go and drink some water.
So you smash a drink bottle down, right?
Yeah, like 3.
Like a full bottle.
Yeah.
Maybe
No, because you
large
shouldn't drink
glass.
water all at once like
Why
that.
not?
Why not?
Because it's not good for your body. You're meant to
What
take
do
it
you
in...
mean it's not good for your body? You need to drink 3.5 liters of water a day. It doesn't say over the whole course of the day in small sips.
He's right.
Because otherwise I'd be optimizing. I'd be having a sip every second. I might as well just get on a fucking IV drip.
I do the same thing with food, which I think is a little more psychopathic.
That's a little worse.
I will not eat for like
Yeah, you
all
do
day.
forget to eat. It scares me.
And then I will eat like the biggest meal. I'll eat like a whole quiche or like a pie.
The funniest fucking thing I've seen in my life. D&D the other day, we sit down at the table. Matt pulls out half a quiche in a Tupperware. We go, "Are you eating half a quiche for dinner?" He goes, "No, I've got more food." We go, "Okay." He eats the half a quiche. He sits there for maybe an hour or so. Goes, "I'm still hungry." Pulls out the other half of the quiche in another Tupperware.
Okay, I put it in 2 containers. One for the comedic value of bringing out the second half of the quiche an hour
You
later.
were thinking about the bit. I'm glad to know
The
that.
bit was in mind, but also like I couldn't fit all the quiche in one container. That was half of it.
You
yeah.
are a blessed specimen.
Speaking of blessed specimens,
Shadow the Hedgehog.
I just from the last episode we recorded, I just got Keanu Reeves just staring me down, and
Nice.
it's great. I love it. No, today we're going to talk about men.
Nice. Men.
The M word. Men. Men.
Men. But not men. Men.
Go on, dude.
We need some elaboration.
Because, like any good Tolkien episode, I'm going to start it with a quick language lesson.
Delightful.
I'm glad we have
My
3
good man, Tolkien, the English teacher. That motherfucker.
I'm glad we have 3
Professor.
I'm glad we have
It's
3
a
guys
teacher.
on a podcast talk about men.
Yep.
Men.
And that is because for this, at least for the sake of this episode, as always in Tolkien's writing, the word men or man is used in a non-gendered way. It is a generic man as in human. For curiosity, because Tolkien's work and his mythos and his world is heavily steeped in and taken from Anglo-Saxon teachings and language, in our world, not Tolkien world, the terms originally, and the reason why Tolkien uses the non-gendered specific man is because originally there was 3 words: where man, with man, and man. Man meaning either anything in between. Where man meaning man, in the modern sense of male, and with man being the term for woman. Which over time the where from where man got dropped, and then where stuck around with it words like werewolf, werewolf, man wolf, etc. And then with man eventually dropped the F and became women, and then the I became an O, and that's how the language evolved from Anglo-Saxon English to modern English.
I delight in etymology.
Etymology,
I
yeah.
fucked this up the other day because etymology is one thing, entomology is another.
It is.
Entomology's bugs, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the one.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
Stupid.
just glad we can learn about some real world law.
Real
It is.
world law. From
What's this, Stu? We're not supposed to learn real shit here. What do we do?
I'm sorry, I always find a way of sneaking real shit in. Especially if it has to do with the English language.
This
apparently.
is real shit.
This is real shit. But yeah, just for curiosity's sake, and that is the reason why. Because I mean, let's be honest, Lord of the Rings was written in 60s ish, 50s to 60s, across many years actually. But the time period that it was written in, it was well and truly into a time when saying man would typically be just talking about a male rather than either sense of the word or either sense of the word.
Are you telling me J.R.R. Tolkien was a pedant? Surprise me. God on earth, I would not believe that J.R.R. Tolkien would be a guy who cares about the details.
I have no idea what you mean. Whereas because he's trying to steep in and lean in towards the Anglo-Saxon law. That was so fucking true.
That was horrible. Guy's been trying to open a Red Bull can
I've
for
been
like the
trying, I've
last...
been waiting for the right moment. I was going to do a bit about it, but then Jude started imitating to do it, so I ripped a cough and pulled the trigger.
I kept
Is the
like
cough
talking
worse?
slightly louder and like trying to repeat myself slightly louder, but it went right. It worked. We got there.
I think the cough was worse, but then that was definitely worse. The slurp.
In any case, we're
Men.
going to talk about the realms of men.
Men.
The creation of the race of man in Tolkien's world, the mythos of Arda, and returning to Middle-earth. This Middle-earth, as it were.
19 rings made for the men.
It was 19?
27,000 rings.
500 rings.
500 rings.
And
The age of men is nigh.
the last time we talked about any of this, we've had a couple Lord of the Rings episodes, not for a few years now. I hate that we can say that.
It's fucked
been a while.
How dare you?
But the last time we talked about stuff we're going to touch on in this episode was our second ever episode of the podcast. When we did the Second Age and Numenor and talked about that. Because I thought it was going to be close to when Rings of Power came out, and then they pranked us and we waited like another 3 years. So anyway, we now have Rings of Power, and you can watch Rings of Power, and that's that. And you can hear me talk about Rings of Power and my many conflicting thoughts on it in the minisodes. Speaking of, you can sign up to our Patreon and listen to minisodes.
Oh my God.
Kiss me on the lips.
And kiss Guy on the lips.
Become a law keeper today at Living by the Law Patreon.
Yep. Hashtag subscribe. Hashtag pay money. Hashtag
We're
save
really good at
us.
social media.
Just disclose, you do not get to kiss Guy on the lips. That's for me.
I'll make a digital I'll do that in Unity. I'll 3D scan myself and make a Unity game where you kiss me on the lips. That's fine.
Cool. Anyway, so of course I'm sure that both of you remember perfectly clearly that the Second Age of Middle-earth, we talked about the War of Wrath. Can you tell me what the War of Wrath was?
Oh, God.
There were lots of men, and they were angry.
Dude, that was 4 years ago. Okay, let me think about it. So...
Something about the elves.
No, Sauron got evicted from after the big war.
You know what I really hate? You know what I hate? Guy just got more correct in Tolkien than Matt.
Let's go!
Sauron's not a big player in the War of Wrath yet. This is Morgoth versus the Valar.
Yeah, I was going to say.
There were lots of
That's
elves.
what I was going to say.
The OG one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the OG one.
And they were was this where they started making like magic weapons and shit? Was this?
They did make some magic weapons here at some point, yeah.
I think that was mentioned.
Morgoth crafted all sorts of dragons and all sorts of monsters, and it was
That's it.
apocalyptic.
Oh, yes.
Apocalyptic level gods versus gods sort of creation event era war thing.
Delightful.
And then we had the rise of Numenor, the fall of Numenor. We talked about what happened, and Sauron came in and
Numenor had a
he
bad time.
totally seduced the fuck out of Numenor and talked them into doing things. That's what Matt was trying to hint at there. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit more today in the setup for... We've got the movie coming out really, really soon, War of the Rohirrim, looking like it'll be a pretty epic movie. We're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk about Rohan a bit more. But today we're going to start with where men began and talk about the original kingdoms of man.
So this is part 2 to episode 2, now episode 78. We're doing good.
I suppose if you want to phrase it that way, sure.
Our longest ever continuing
Well,
series.
it's not... You don't need to go back and listen to that episode
Yes, you do.
in any way,
You
shape, or
should.
form.
We could do another Keys to the Kingdom episode.
God help me.
Oh, one Patreon's there, like, yeah. So, to refresh our memories, the origin of man, in the context of Middle-earth, J.R.R. Tolkien.
I know this one. Adam and Eve in the garden.
Yep. Nope, that's Narnia.
that's the Bible.
I know.
Also, yeah, it's true.
Mankind, in Tolkien's world, was created by the supreme god Iluvatar. Remember Iluvatar? Yes.
The name rings a bell.
Yep, that's okay. Awakening in Hildorian at the rising of the sun after the elves, dwarves, and ents had all been made. They were called the Afterborn
Nice.
because they were born after the sun had
Late to the
risen.
party.
Yep,
The afterthought.
they were. They in Quenya they are referred to as the one of the elven languages, Atani, or in the other elven language of Sindarin, the Idane.
Said a lot of words just then, my man. Where the fuck is Kenya?
Quenya is one of the elven languages.
Right, gotcha.
What does that
All you
mean?
need to know
Right, yep.
in the elven language, Afterborn is Atani,
Gotcha.
or in the other elven language of Sindarin, it is Idan.
Yep.
Yep, and Idan is what we're going to be referring to them for a lot of this episode. So Idan means man.
Edan.
Edan.
Idane, sorry, Idane.
Edan.
Edan?
Idane. Men bore the gift of Iluvatar, which is mortality,
Oh.
and therefore aged and died with when their time came, and were susceptible to illness and diseases.
Shit gift.
As opposed to elves, who were immortal, in the sense that they are not susceptible to aging and diseases.
I mean,
Yes, that is what immortal means.
The difference is, and the reason for this is, and the reason that it is a gift is because it means that elves are much more intrinsically tied to Arda, or the world, meaning that even after death, they remain tied to the world. They pass into the Undying Lands and are reincarnated, and they're basically trapped in this perpetual world. However, this means that the gift that men receive is that they are not bound to Arda, and that even the Valar themselves do not know what ultimate fate awaited the souls of men. So they could be completely free into a separate afterlife that even the gods don't know of.
Holy shit, they get free of the fucking world. That's the gift, is getting to stop living.
Mean, considering what some of the souls of the damned have been put up to in Lord of the Rings and that particular Tolkien series, sure.
That begs the question, though.
Yep.
Dwarves. Do they have the gift of
Are they
Arda?
gifted?
Or do they are also reborn from the earth? Keep mining, there's little dwarves come out of the earth.
That's a little bit more complicated of a question because they're not one of the children of Ilúvatar.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
They're-
I forgot. Only the elves and man were created by the big boy.
Yeah,
The other gods
dwarves were not
dwarves.
meant to be. Aeole, the god of forge and smiths, created the dwarves and created them against Ilúvatar's wishes, and Ilúvatar was going to murder them all, but then the other gods went, no, but they're cute and stuff, and then Ilúvatar decided to let them live, and that's part of the reason that they're blessed with slightly longer life, but not fully.
No, Dad, that's genocide. Don't.
Anyway,
Don't do it.
Ilúvatar declared that after the world's end, the men and not the elves would play a bigger part in the second music of the Aenir, which is basically saying that when the world ends and we create everything again in the second coming, the men are going to be here, the elves won't be. And that the idea is that the men have been able to move on to something else and create something else. All of this is to say that Ilúvatar created the nature of men to be more creative and not as strict and locked into the rules and not locked into the paths laid out before them in the way that elves are.
This explains this is actually lining up so well, because it's one of those things where it's like, being ingratiated with fantasy tropes, it's like, oh yes, elves are always so hoity-toity and won't do anything. And it's like, yeah, because humans have not the adaptability of the individual, but the adaptability of the race, because they are fucking replaced so often because they die so fucking fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Evolution happens more quickly.
Whereas the elves are very tied to their place and their morals and their
Exactly.
traditions.
And at least in the Tolkien scope of it, this is because they've been given this gift of freedom, this gift of almost more of a freedom of mind and freedom of thought than the elves have got. They aren't as drawn to do particular things in the way that I went on a mini rant about it 4 years ago when we did the last episode, but everything's created in the music and the song of creation by Ilúvatar, who started the song, and all of the paths of the world and everything is like laid out in a story already by Ilúvatar. Everything is already written, and the elves are like ingratiated and locked into that paths. Men are not. They have a lot more choice. They have a lot more freedom.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember you mentioned the song and how everything's kind of written out for, except for like humans.
Yeah.
So humans are like the one thing that have like free will in this world.
Yep.
Do hobbits also count into that?
Less so.
Less so, but
Less
they
so.
do have like they seem to have like a freedom.
Hobbits are kind of, yes, they're free, but they're also quite lazy is the thing.
They are, so that's
They
their
don't
nature.
have like the driving force. Hobbits are comfort, men are pushing and striving, if that
Interesting.
makes sense. I suppose to really simplify it.
Yeah.
Ilúvatar also foretold that men, being imperfect, would stray often and not use their gifts in harmony. However, he also noted that, to quote from Ilúvatar, Tolkien, these two, in their time, shall find that all that they do rebounds at the end only to the glory of my work. Basically, all of which to say is, Ilúvatar created men to be striving, to be pushing, to be curious, all of this sort of thing. But that was his intention, that was his plan, so them going off and doing all of these different things, as much as it may seem to people like the elves, how could you do that? How could you create that? How could you go in that direction? That is what was intended for them. That is the intended path.
It was my plan all along.
Exactly. The elves, however, consider men a burden to many of the other Valar, especially Manwë. who's one of the more major, the god of the eagles, if you will, the eagles connected, the one that the elves primarily worship, I guess you could say, to really simplify it. And they believed that men resembled more Morgoth than of all of the other Valar. And it was true that men had more of a desire of power than any other race in Middle-earth, but in truth, the Dark Lord feared and hated men more than any other race.
Yeah, it's like that freedom to be able to choose both sides, whereas like the races are usually locked into their way.
The random factor.
And that is one.
Yeah, it's the random factor in there.
And it's also the thing where, like, yeah, exactly. And that is the thing where, like, as much as the elves are mighty and this all-powerful race that do incredible feats in Tolkien's lore and are like superhuman beings, you also kind of see it time and time again they can get defeated by evil because they are so predictable in what they're going to do. And that can often be their undoing and their demise, whereas humans have that little bit of spunk to them, I guess.
A little bit of chutzpah.
Yeah, exactly.
They like to roll the dice.
Yeah.
I do like how God just blatantly plays favorites. Plays just blatantly.
Well, the idea is that men were created second after the sun because they were meant to become the inhabitants of the world, whereas the elves were created to help shape the world before the rising of the sun.
They're the second coming.
Yeah, literally. They're the afterborn. That's literally what they are.
The elves are
Jesus
the
Christ.
Yeah.
The elves are the architects and the humans are the players.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the kind of reason that, like, especially as you get to, like, the Third Age of Middle-earth, like, where the movies take place, the elves are leaving because that's the end of their time. And the idea is of Tolkien's world, which I feel like I may have mentioned at some point, but the whole idea of Tolkien's world is that, like, if you take the end of the movies and go forward, like, a few thousand years, you'd end up in our modern world.
Yeah, it's Middle-earth and you'd get to our Earth eventually. Right? Yeah, like it's Middle-earth, right? Like the Middle Ages. Isn't that
kind
the point
of,
like Middle-earth?
Kind of.
I love when Jude gets mildly isn't sure whether he should be annoyed at Matt or not.
No, it's more just
the barrel.
It's more not letting us get into a completely different rant.
That's fair enough.
I'll just brush that off with the kind of.
Be so careful with this. He's so volatile to go off at any point.
Debate.
That brings us to, with that background, that brings us to a thing I talked about last time in one of the Lord of the Rings episodes. There are 3 types of man in this setting, ultimately, when you get down to it. Despite any and all cultural differences, any and all physical traits or differences, you can separate them into 3 categories. To go back onto script, though all men of Arda were related by blood, they were sundered and different cultures developed. The most renowned group of men were what became the Edain. The word Edain used to refer to all men, but the elves began using it to specify only one particular group of men, and that was the men that joined the elves in the First Age and fought against Morgoth in the War of Wrath. These men we talked about a lot last time in the Númenor episode as the Edain, and they later renamed themselves to the Dúnedain. If you know Lord of the Rings or watched any movies or read the books, you'll know the Dúnedain. Aragorn is one of the Dúnedain, one of those ranger folk. For their services and assistance to the elves and the Valar, the Edain were rewarded with a new land of their own, the big island of Númenor, which gets raised out of the ocean halfway between Middle-earth and the Undying Lands. This is the island that separates the perils of Middle-earth from the Númenorians. They kind of get their little island paradise. The Edain were led to this island by a elf named...
Sorry, my stomach is singing. I should not... Today I have had 1 sausage roll, a full thing of Monster Energy, and I'm slamming a Red Bull, and that's about it, baby.
I just hear nearly
my stomach is singing.
Nearly as loud as Jude's voice, just a gurgling going on from behind me.
Incredible.
Gurgling, it's whimpering.
It's crying.
It is.
So, an elf by the name of Elros, you may be thinking that name sounds similar to Elrond if you've watched or read anything. Even Guy knows the name Elrond, I'm sure.
Seems familiar.
Yep, the dude whose face floats in out of nowhere in the Lord of the Rings, and you were like, "Oh, face."
I don't
when
remember.
Okay. When Frodo's like in Rivendell, and he's like, succumbing to the poison and a random face floats in healing him.
When it, like in the ghost world thing with the
Kind of.
What about have
like
you heard,
just after that.
have you
Yeah.
heard I Was There, Gandalf 3,000 years ago?
Yeah.
Have you heard of Isildur?
Yeah.
That's
That's
Elrond.
Elrond.
Oh, cool.
So Elrond's brother, Elros, one of the other... So Elrond and Elros are the first half-elven.
Ron and Ross.
Yep, Ron and Ross. Elros, when you're half-elven in this world, you get to choose between mortality or immortality. Elrond chose immortality, Elros chose mortality. And with the guidance of his father, Elros sails this group of men who are given this gift to the island of Numenor. And he then becomes the first king of Numenor, known as Tar Minyatar. And the Edain renamed themselves to the Dunedain at this stage. And then the kingdom of Numenor grows in power and becomes super noble and mighty and hoity-toity, and they ally themselves with the elves. And
They become more elf-like. That's fucking crazy.
no, they become more Chad.
Okay.
They go from seeing the elves as above them to seeing the elves as equals to seeing the elves as lesser over time.
Okay.
Bit of arrogance. I mean,
Yeah.
stuck on an island.
And now that there's a few times here which we talked about way back when, but to super summarize in a few paragraph in like a sentence, they ally with the elves and fight against Morgoth's lieutenant Sauron, who's kicking around at this time. Morgoth's been defeated, but Sauron's the big bad now. It kind of goes into this cycle where the elves struggle versus Sauron, and then the Numenorians get on their boats, come across and go, "Someone giving you trouble, big boys? Let's put him in his place," and just beating the shit out of Sauron a couple of times. And that basically happens a few times, and that's where they start to go, maybe these elves ain't it. Maybe they don't. Maybe they aren't.
We have to clean up their mess every fucking time.
Yeah.
Fucking stupid.
Which, I mean, fair enough, right? And now that these men of the West had become so powerful, they begin to resent the gift of men, or death, if you will. They wanted to become properly immortal like the elves and enjoy their accumulated power and wealth for all time, rather than being limited to... These men are still getting a lifespan of like 300 years because they're blessed.
Seems very
Wait, so
bad.
they're blessed. They're not. These aren't half elves.
No.
Okay, sorry. Got
You're all
lost
good.
on the side there.
That you can
They got
honestly,
some juicy blood.
Honestly, if it helps your brain, you can definitely think of these guys as half elves, because like if you were to put them into a D&D terms, they pretty much are half elves, really.
But you just said half elves get to choose.
Yeah, I know.
Real half
but-
elves. These are like quarter, 8th, 16th elf. They have a little elf in them.
A little spicy.
Well, if they're
God
still
blessed.
they're a half elf in the sense of they have an exceptionally long life and are quite a bit stronger and more sturdy and more resilient than a normal man, but they're not properly immortal in the way that like Middle Earth elves could literally live forever.
They got a
in
little
theory.
god in them.
why can't they fuck the elves?
They can. They
Then-
do.
Then God willing, do it.
They do.
Then why are the children
Oh, you mean
of
like
that?
like fuck the
Like,
elves? I thought you
fuck
meant
the
I thought
elves.
you meant like have sex with the elves.
No, I did mean fuck the elves.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
we're
they-
talking about having sex with them. Why
Yeah,
don't we make
So why
more
aren't the
half
kids
elves?
who are then more half elf not have the choice?
They do.
So then my relative, my child, just have better kids.
I mean, yeah, that
Okay.
some of them do.
Okay, that's a
some of them
valid
do.
option.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. It sounded like a bigger issue for
If a
them.
half elf and a half elf have a baby, do they get to choose?
No,
That's
they
how
would
the
not.
fuck.
No,
that's
they would
that's
not.
these guys are the kids of half elves, aren't they?
Kind of. They weed down their blood with a lot of other humans.
Yeah.
So Elrond and Elros are the true half-elven ones.
Yeah.
The men that are on this island are just the men that fought with the elves in the War of Wrath, or the descendants of the men that did, and they got blessed by the gods to have this extended life.
elf blessing, not elf blood.
Yeah.
Elf blood
Yeah.
give you choice. Elf blessing give you
Yeah.
more juice, but not
Exactly,
enough. Cool,
exactly.
I'm
They
with
got-
you.
Yeah.
You gotta
Aragorn-
go. You gotta go real low.
Really,
lowest common denominator.
really basic, really simplify.
Uh-huh.
Anyone has a loose, vague idea of Lord of the Rings if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure. Aragorn, you can get the idea of who Aragorn is.
Yeah.
He's
one of them
Of-
ranger folk.
He is one of those ranger folk. He is of the descent of sprinkling of godness. Therefore, he just is longer life. Look at Aragorn, the country.
I was looking at Aragon and the province of Spain came
Yeah,
up.
'cause you typed in Aragon.
Not Aragorn. And his wifey
One arm.
elf Arwen she is a descendant of Elrond, therefore she gets the choice of mortal life or immortal life.
So she's a half-elf?
She's the daughter. She's got 2 elven parents, but because she's the daughter of Elrond, she gets the choice.
Elrond was a half-elf who chose to be immortal, remember?
No, I got that, but she's the most elf-looking motherfucker I've ever seen.
So is Elrond.
Yeah.
Fair enough, honestly.
Yeah. But she gets the choice, and she, of course, chooses a mortal life with you, with Aragorn.
Oh, yes, exactly. That beautiful moment.
That beautiful moment, yeah.
She gives some hairs to a dwarf.
Wrong elf, but nice
That's
try.
close enough.
Yeah.
Isn't he technically his like great
Yes.
cousin?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
Don't worry about it.
Fair enough.
Living by the law official debate, how far apart do you have to be cousins before it's cool? Continue. Never mind. If I abandon this, I see the reaction in the room. I can feel the room turn to ice.
So anyway, the Númenóreans began to turn away from the Valar and the Elves, and they began to call the gift of men the doom of men, and cursed the Valar for banning them from sailing to the Undying Lands.
Yeah, this island's stinky.
So in near the year 3000 of the Second Age, this is like thousands of years after the island's been raised out of the water, so they've had a long time to go, like
Island's
a lot of
done
generations.
Let me go to heaven.
One of the Númenórean kings becomes the first Númenórean king to not take an elven name, but instead take a name in the language of men. Adunaic, which I will not say again because
John
it's just
Smith.
another word to throw at
He
you.
becomes John Smith.
Man.
Man. He's a man.
What is his actual fucking name? No, I want to hear this, because if it's some fucking fantasy elf bullshit, I'll be mad.
Ardunacor.
That's elf bullshit.
That's a fucking elf bullshit.
Nah, that's elf.
I get it, it's not elven official language, it's not sanctioned.
I think his name should be Hugh Man.
Yes. Come on, Tolkien. Get your
Hugh-man.
shit
Hugh
together.
Man.
And then at this point, this is
Really
pretty
piss off the
controversial.
elves.
This is very controversial for the Númenóreans.
Oh, yeah.
And the people of Númenor become incredibly divided into 2 distinct factions. The king's men, who enjoyed the support of the king and were the majority of the people. They favoured this new human language and despised the elven language.
Good movie.
The minority faction, the faithful, were led by the Lord Aeduni in the west of Númenor, and they still favoured Sindarin, the elven language, and they favoured friendship with the elves. Sauron, at this point, who's been beaten by the Númenóreans a bunch of times and is actually shit scared of them, suddenly goes, Númenóreans are turning against the elves. Interesting.
Civil War.
So he takes advantage of this division, and he surrenders to the last Númenórean king, Ar-Pharazôn, who Watchers of the Rings of Power will remember, because he is in the Rings of Power.
He's the old man?
He's the old man that
So
takes
old.
over from Miriel. Which is interesting, because in the books, Miriel and Ar-Pharazôn are husband and wife, but in the Rings of Power, they've made them cousins that are competing for the same throne. But anyway, I don't, as long as they don't fuck, I guess. Anyway.
Oh, it was fine when it was fucking Game of Thrones, but now we're all getting hoity-toity about it. All right, chill out, guys.
Was it fine when it was Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't watched either of these things.
Sauron worked his way into the king's councils. Ultimately, Sauron advised him that it would be a really good idea to get all the lads on ships and go and attack the elven lands of the lands of the gods, Valinor.
Yeah, go fucking
I know-
up.
I know
You guys
Sauron's-
can do it.
I know
I
Sauron-
And if they do it, they could claim immortality for themselves.
I know
I've got
Sauron-
it over there. It's in a bottle. You could just fucking drink it, guys.
I know Sauron sounds like shit, but getting the boys together, go on ships and go fucking conquer sounds pretty good.
Can I also say,
Get the boys.
I know, there's probably some fucking charm magic, or the fact that Sauron's a slippery little bitch and he's just got a silver tongue, but also sometimes when you just lay his plan out, it's like, hey, you guys should go kill yourself. This'll work out, I promise. And they're like, yes.
Every history book says he's the Lord of Evil.
Lord of Evil, do not trust him, ultimate betrayer. Hey guys, I
a
know,
silver
but I'm
tongue.
going to surrender to you guys, and also you should go attack the elves. It's
But
gonna be
Do you think he was
Also-
fucking-
but
do you
also-
think the king was fucking Sauron on the side? Is that Riz?
Shut the fuck up, Jews.
I mean, maybe. But honestly,
Binorians.
realistically, to look at it, the only reason that they've been fighting Sauron is because Sauron is getting is forced into war with the elves. Because with the exception of a few times, it's usually Sauron building up forces and the elves coming in to fight him.
Man just wants to build civilization. The elves come and attack him. He's a defensive guy.
So from the Númenóreans' perspective, as they slowly start to turn against the elves, then it does raise the question of, well, the only reason we came and fought this guy was because the elves thought it was the right thing. But because they now think the elves are the bad guys, they're like, well, actually, maybe he was right, and he surrendered to us, and he's helping us, and he's giving us gifts, and he's giving us secrets that we didn't understand, and using powers to help us.
Sauron... Yeah, I get it. I like, he's in the movies and he's just like a big shadowy scary guy with a sword, and it's like, he's Lord Evil.
Can you do me a favor real quick, and can you just Google Rings of Power Sauron?
I'll show you.
And then tell me that this man
He's hot as fuck.
Oh my god! That's him?
Yeah,
that's him.
Look how dreamy he is.
No. Hold on. What's the fucking elf guy?
Oh yeah, he also turns into the elf version.
Okay, I was gonna say fucking forehead landing strip, but the other guy, the brown haired one.
Oh, they're the same guy.
Oh no, I know, but like that's a whole nother look.
There's two different fantasies right there.
He does. I think he looks better as a human.
Oh yeah, that's so. What the fuck?
But I can see how that's some people's type, the elven one, but I prefer the human.
This looks more like Jude. I'll be honest.
Okay.
This is look at this.
That's pretty good.
He looks
You're
like,
not wrong. That could.
If you want to know what Jude looks like, he looks like evil Sauron elf form.
Yeah, Anatar, the Lord of Gifts.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
he's hot.
He's hot.
He's not. He only really becomes the big metal, dark, spooky spirit thing later.
What I'm saying is, in Lord of the Rings, the like one thing I've half watched, it's like, oh, he's Lord Evil and he's got legions and he's so powerful. It's like, and he made rings for people. It's like, how did anyone ever fucking trust this guy? With the context of everything else that Tolkien wrote, kind of makes more sense. And seeing this, even more so.
Yeah,
I get it.
Exactly.
I get it.
It does that is one curse of not being immortal, right? You have people, you change your mind and you don't see the whole picture, whereas elves get to be we were there when it happened, right?
Exactly. It's because, like I said before, it's pretty key that this is happening in nearly the year 3000 of the Second Age. If you consider just how absolute max these men, the kings of Númenor, are living for like 250 to 300 years, absolute max. If you think about how many people they've gone through to get to this point, as opposed to the elves who have like 10 people who have just been there the whole time.
And also like the thing about like, oh my god, my brain just stopped working.
It hit.
I'm going to keep going so we don't.
And he's out of it.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Anyway, so they decided this would be a really good idea, and so
Attack the elves, go for it.
They decide, let's go attack the Godlands and take immortality for ourselves. The Lord of the Faithful, and Anduni, went on his own ship, just solo traveler style, to the Elflands first to warn the Elven Lords that the Númenor men were coming. He's never heard from again, and we don't know what happens to him for sure, but we do know that in what happens next, his followers, the Faithful, are allowed safe passage out. So, presumably he got through and the gods took pity on him.
He went to fucking heaven?
Anyway, whatever the case, Númenor arrives on the shores of the Undying Lands, and Ilúvatar loses his fucking mind and sinks the island of Númenor and destroys their entire fleet.
Goat.
Yep.
Yeah, God, come on. You could see this coming from a while away.
Yep.
You can't just get mad and get upset and just, no, smash.
It's a child. That's so right. It's a child's tantrum.
It's a child's tantrum. You just smashed their island and made them sink into the ocean.
Yeah.
Come on, God. You could have seen this coming.
So that's one group of humans.
Would you describe these guys? You said there's three groups.
Yep.
Describe these guys as knights, ninjas, or cowboys.
I like this. Knights.
Knights, okay.
Easy. Knights.
When you said there were three types of men, that's what I was thinking in my
Knights.
brain.
I will say the subgroup of the knights were paladins dedicated to their cause, and they were delivered to the Holy Lands for their belief and faith in their
These are the
immortal
ones.
masters.
Okay.
The interesting thing as well, at this point, when you've got like the King's Men versus the Faithful and this whole like faction war building up where they're going with different ideologies, they're also leaving their island because they're also reaching the point where they've overpopulated the island so much in these 3,000 years because humans breed a lot more than elves.
Damn humans.
Yep. So Middle-earth is starting to get lots of pockets of Númenóreans in little
They have
colonies.
colonies, yeah.
Yeah, that are also mixing with the other people that already live on Middle-earth, which we'll get to next up. And some of these places, such as Umbar, that we're about to get to, which is settled by people that are loyal to the Kingsmen side of things. So the next faction,
We're gonna put
Umpa Lumpa Doobity-doo.
Oompa Loompa.
Yeah, this is where Willy Wonka went to get the
Next,
Oompa.
we will go on to the Easterlings.
Yes.
The Easterlings, put very, very, very simply, are just the groups of men who, yes, live east of the Misty Mountains, if you know the Misty Mountains on the map of Middle-earth.
God.
Big mountain range down the middle, and they are the men that lived east of the mountains that took the side of Morgoth in the war against the Valar. So they actively fought alongside him.
Based.
This also starts to include groups such as the Númenóreans that settled in Umbar, as they fall into the same kind of group of these guys. And then we have eventual future people like the Haradrim, who are men from the desert that rode great oliphants and Mulmarks, the big fucking elephant dudes.
What's a Mulmark?
Big fucking elephant.
Why are they different from elephants?
They're the same thing. It's just two different names.
Okay.
Yeah. Big elephant.
Yeah, fair enough.
They
Really
ride
big
those
elephant.
into war.
Fair enough.
You also get Variags from Khan, who are basically chariot riders, all sorts of things like this. Just different groupings of men that followed them. Not much more to say on them, apart from the fact that this term starts to include Númenóreans that became evil, if you will, as they sided with the King's men and turning on the elves and the Valar, and they become the Black Númenóreans who join with these other groups of men and start to war with the other group of men that we're about to get to. Colloquially called the Northmen. They are men that came also from the east of the Misty Mountains, mostly, but also did not choose to fight with Morgoth. They didn't join the elves, but they didn't join Morgoth. They just stayed neutral.
The Swiss.
The Swiss.
Lovely.
Yeah, they joined Lord Stark. Because there's only one king in the north, and his name is Stark.
Damn right. We're going to get to another King of the North soon. Anyway, we can super simplify then. There's all sorts of different groups here. Most of them did come down from the north, go figure. And there is also a group here of men that did side with the Valar, but when they were offered the gift as their reward, they didn't want to take it, so they stayed behind. So you've got a mix of that and with people who just didn't choose to fight.
Knowing how they ended up, probably a good idea.
Yep, agreed. And there were some Northmen that dwelt in... honestly, we'll just keep going on there. But, actually, no, I think we'll just leave that because we'll come back to them next time.
There's a lot of men who came down from the north.
Northmen.
Is there, like, where do they come from? Do they just move up there and come back down?
It's more, if you've watched or read The Hobbit...
Yeah.
The places like Dale and Mirkwood / Greenwood, that sort of north.
Okay.
So what I was
Kind of
about
like
to
in the
say,
Arctic.
the men of Dale and Esgaroth were Northmen.
Okay.
So from like up that way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like more north than that into the Arctic and such, yeah. That's why a lot of them have a lot more of like a Nordic theme to them, especially like if you look at your men of the Aetheod, who become the Rohirrim, they are very, very typically Nordic in terms of being big, pasty, pale, blonde-haired dudes with Anglo-Saxon aesthetics to them.
Yeah, these guys are Vikings.
Yeah, they're literally...
That was the
Vikings,
fourth type of man I was going to say, of the three type of men. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to remove ninjas and put Vikings, and we're going to say that the Easterlings are cowboys because they just went with Morgoth because it was a good deal.
Okay. Also, this might be me being stupid
Yep.
or me not knowing Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Geographically,
Yep.
we're no longer on the Númenóreans' little special island.
We're back on Middle-earth, yeah.
Back on Middle-earth.
Yeah.
So Númenóreans are the ones who went to the special island.
Yeah.
They then came back
Some of them did, yeah.
and they intermingled.
Yeah.
Vanilla, unflavored men
Yeah.
were there the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. How Northmen, Eastmen, assorted other men.
Unspiced men.
How much spice is in those men?
Zero spice.
Zero spice.
Zero spice.
They're kind of your classic you and I level men.
There
that
may
would-
be some Númenóreans around on Middle Earth.
Yeah.
But Númenórean. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's where.
Yeah.
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 Did a question? Wait, is this like north of Mordor, right?
Kind of, yeah. It's kind of northwest. Of Mordor,
yeah, northwest. Yeah,
Alright, I'm with it.
Is there any spice that got spiced onto the Easterlings? Like, were they like cursed, or were they like blessed by Morgoth?
That's a very contentious point. Depending what you believe, there are some people that believe they have like sorceress powers that came from Morgoth.
Ooh.
But it's that would be a whole separate podcast, honestly. So maybe for the sake of now, we're going to continue on with the founding of the Great Kingdoms, Gondor and Arnor, a tale of two kingdoms, if you will. Ooh. So we've established that Numenor gets plunged into the water and downfall, and it gets destroyed.
Bye-bye.
And there's the group of the faithful who are allowed to escape while the rest of the island sank, and that was led by a man named Elendil the Tall and his sons Isildur and Denarion. Elendil's 4 ships were separated from the rest of the ships in his fleet that his sons were on, and Elendil arrived in a place called Eladior, which is one of the elven lands in Middle-earth, so right on the shores. And as he landed, Elendil proclaimed in Quenya, a phrase that I'm going to send to the chat, and I'm going to make Matt read, and then I'll read it.
While he's
funny.
loading up that message, could you hit me with those kids' names again?
Elendil, Isildur, and Denarion.
What was the last one again?
Anarion.
Excellent.
Anarion.
Interesting.
Are these guys on the elf? Like, we like elves, or we don't like elf side?
They're the ones that like the elves.
That's why they got weird
faithful.
names.
That's why
that's fair. It's fine if they have weird names. They like the elves. The people who didn't like the elves, that was not a man. That was not a man name.
So I'm going to send Matt this quote.
Yes, I'm just waiting
It's
for
sent.
it.
Oh.
The only reason I asked Jude for that name multiple times is that there is a character who is an elf in our D&D campaign with a similar name, and I was just interested.
Yeah.
I was just interested.
Jude, that's not English. Jude.
Yes, Matthew.
Jude,
Yes.
Jude.
Yes, Matthew, you must.
I can barely speak English quotes.
It's okay. I'll cover this one, and then I'll send you
I
the
got
English
this.
No,
I got this.
Got in him, he must.
Italion endorina. Ilion sinum malven a hildenia ten ambametta.
How close is Elvish to Italian?
It wasn't awful.
I think I made up some syllables in there. I think I just threw some in.
I just like the rhythm of it.
I feel like that's Italian. You got to throw some syllables in as well as you go.
This is something that is known as the Oath of Elendil.
I just made an oath.
Yep.
Oh, shit.
Yes, in Elven, et aliol endoreno Ithulian, sinome mulavan an hildenya ten amba meta.
That was pretty much what I
You're
said.
pretty close.
Damn.
I'll
that
send
was
you.
exactly what you said. Word for word, syllable for syllable.
Maybe I know Elven more than I know English. You know?
You're like what fucking thing am I thinking? There's a bunch of examples. Let's go with Harry Potter knowing snake.
Parseltongue?
Guy, I'm going to send you the English version of the quote. And this is what Elendil speaks as he arrives in Middle-earth.
I hate that you gave me the Elven one.
Out of the great sea to Middle-earth I am come.
No.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Keep going.
Give me some in Mohorog. Fuck you.
Out of the great sea to Middle-earth I am come. In this place I will abide, and my heirs unto the ending of the world.
Mamma mia.
And his heir and 38th great-grandson Aragorn spoke these traditional words in Elvish once again when he takes up the crown of Gondor at the beginning of the Fourth Age. Or in the movies, as anyone that's watched them will know, Aragorn sings this oath at the very end when he's being crowned.
So, out of the great sea, is that a reference to...
They've sailed across the sea from the sinking of Numenor.
The fucking
out
island
of the
went-
sea is also... Because it's not across the sea, it's out of the sea. So
Yeah.
Numenor's sunk. That's
it's
good.
Arty language.
And in this place I will abide, and my heirs unto the ending of the world. I'm coming to this bitch, and I'm staying here.
Yep.
Not like they have another choice at this point, but that's fine.
You're not going back.
You're not going back. Numenor's fucking gone, baby.
And at this point, Elendil was welcomed to Eredio by the Elven High King Gil-galad in the Second Age, and he founded the Kingdom of Arnor and built the great city of Amunias as the capital of Arnor.
I knew
One more
couple of
time?
those.
Anuminas.
Okay.
Anuminas.
Hakuna Matata.
Yep. In any case, Elendil, to translate, Elendil arrives, meet Elven King Gil-galad, settles kingdom, makes big city.
I remember Gil-galad from something. What was he up to?
He was in the Elven Hunger Games.
That's
we
the
did.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we killed him.
Yep.
Poor guy.
Did we call him mid?
The
I think we did.
The 5 ships carrying Elendil's sons, however, landed much further south and around the coast,
Isildur!
where Anarion founded the city of Minas Anor in Anorion, and his son Isildur founded the city Minas Ithil in Ithilien. Do you think they maybe imprinted their names on the cities a little bit? Maybe
a little bit. Hey, Rome,
yeah.
You got to call it Romulus, call it Rome. Hey,
course.
If I'm going to found a city, I'm putting my
It's
name in
naming
there a
after
little
me.
bit.
And they ruled this new realm of Gondor jointly as its kings from the capital city of Osgiliath, which anyone that's watched Lord of the Rings will know is a big old ruined thing in the middle of Gondor.
And they all lived happily ever after.
They do for a very long time.
Oh, that's good.
And across the realms, towers were built for the Palantir, which are the seeing stones you can use to talk to each other over long distances.
The phones. They had a phone.
Not Gandalf said. What's the Saruman?
You don't know who could be watching.
No, but also Saruman had his little fucking
Yeah.
orb he was being
Yeah,
baby with
it's
the
that-
whole
that's
time.
This
it,
is
yeah.
this is
That's
at the
that's the
time.
tower.
This is
That's
at the
the orb.
time when the seeing stones are all accounted for, and just the Númenóreans have them. So they're just useful for communication at this
And
point.
they only use them responsibly.
They do at this point.
At
It
this
is nice
point.
that they just
At
have,
this point.
It is nice that they have cell phones.
Exactly.
It's really convenient.
Um,
I do like how the sons are just like,
Yeah.
hey, Dad, I like you, but I'm not going to live you. I'm going to get my own house, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm moving out.
Well, they don't even know that their father survived at this point. They haven't properly met. All they know is they arrived together, they established their kingdom, and where they landed, as opposed to Elendil, who arrived with the elves, where they landed in the south, there was already a huge population of men,
And
both
he's like, I'm taking
Númenóreans.
charge of you guys.
They get welcomed as kings, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Super, super, super abridged here, and perhaps I'll dive into this time period properly in future, but after this, about a couple hundred years after this, we start to get into the early wars around the Last Alliance, which is the end of the Second Age, or the opening scenes of the Fellowship of the Ring, where you see the elves and the men in this big battle fighting Sauron, and it's all epic and stuff, whatever. It starts with Sauron attacking Minas Ithil, Isildur's home, and Isildur escapes with his wife and 3 sons. They escape downriver and board a ship, and then sail around the entire coast of Middle-earth, seeking Elendil, who they've reconnected with at this point,
Get
in
on the
Arnor.
phone.
At this point, Elendil is considered the High King of Gondor and Arnor, but he leaves Gondor to his sons to rule, and he looks after Arnor.
How old is he at this point?
They would be Elendil at least past 200, Isildur probably 150.
Oh, okay. He looks pretty good in the movies for that age.
Yeah.
Looks pretty good.
Yeah. Elendil
No,
at this
they're not
point.
immortal. They're just long lived.
He's mostly.
They got that
immortal.
blessing.
He's at like 50.
Yeah.
He's at 50 out of 100.
Elendil at this point
Half
consulted with Gil-galad, and the two of them formed the last alliance of elves and men to oppose Sauron, etc. Big epic battle.
Yahoo!
Isildur picked up his
The
sword.
same year, Isildur goes to Rivendell, the home of Elrond, and has his youngest son, Valandil, who's born here at this time, and his little babby. Little babby. And at the same time, the Last Alliance, this whole army of all elves and men and Isildur and Elendil and all these random names thrown at you, they all meet up at Rivendell and they go, all right, let's go. Let's go take on Sauron together. And they begin marching across Middle-earth together.
Montage.
That Sauron guy's on this last stand.
That's what they say.
Get him.
And Isildur brings all three of his sons, except the youngest born one.
Get him a sword. Come on, get him.
He's less than a year old at this point.
Get him in.
Fight.
And he leaves his wife at Rivendell with the youngest son, who's just been born.
Well, he's like 200 and he had a new baby.
Yeah.
Damn.
That thing still works.
That thing still works.
But his wife's also like 200. Damn. They're fertile.
That thing still works.
They're fertile.
As the armies of the Last Alliance ventured east, Anarion from Gondor joined up with the entire massed army of Gondor, and they went to fight the lands of Mordor. Once again, I'll maybe do an episode just on this at some stage so I can actually dive into it, but the important thing for now, they go to Sauron's big evil dark fortress and they siege it, and the siege lasts for 7 years. During the siege, Anarion is struck with a rock fired from the walls and dies.
Perfect. How big rock?
So you're telling me that Gondor has no king and Gondor needs no king?
Gondor still has a king right now.
I thought that guy was the king of Gondor.
Isildur and
Oh,
Anarion
okay.
are the joint king of Gondor.
Gondor has no king. Gondor needs no king.
That's coming. That's coming.
How dare you try and skip my fucking question, Jude? How big rock?
Well, it varies.
It varies. I am
So,
slipped and fallen into another Tolkien debate.
Some places say that he died to a catapult shot.
Reasonable.
Some places say that he was leading an assault on the front gates and a rock was dropped from above the gatehouse
Still
and just crushed
reasonable.
his head.
Still reasonable.
I personally cannot decide which image I find more amusing. A random orc, like random shit tier orc, being just on top of this gatehouse going, oh, it's the fucking king in it, and just throwing a rock at his head. Or this king being on his horse like, arise, men of Gondor, and just this catapult shot going,
I like to imagine it's David Goliath's story, and he just gets his little slingshot and goes, pew, and a little pebble hits him in the
Yeah,
head. and just
yeah.
fucking
yeah,
hits
takes
him
him right in the temple, comes off his horse, yeah.
I will say many things to respect about Tolkien's writing. One of the things that is best is you cannot be certain you will survive a battle, even if there is a prophecy written about you that's like 99% never going to come true. Still possible to die. It's not Game of Thrones, but you're not safe.
You're not
It was
safe.
King of Kings. Everyone loved him. He had a great reign.
Everyone loved him. He had a great reign.
so good. Then he got hit by a rock. Big rock, some say. Some say.
So this leaves Isildur as the sole king of Gondor for a time. However, as the battle progresses, as anyone that has watched Lord of the Rings will know, or anyone that's seen the first 5 minutes of the movie will know, the great king of man, Elendil, and the great king of elves, Gil-galad, fight Sauron and die in the process. At the end of their fight, as they both are eliminated, Isildur manages to finish off the heavily injured Sauron and cut the ring of power from his hand.
I've seen that bit.
You've seen that bit.
It's like the first 10 seconds of the
I know.
movie.
It's almost,
that's all he said.
Hey, guy, it's almost like I picked a Lord of the Rings episode where I can talk about a lot of stuff from the first 5 minutes.
We're so proud of you.
So proud. As Isildur picks up the One Ring and takes it for himself, he then decides, and also leaving Elrond as the de facto ruler of the elves, Isildur makes a costly decision. After not destroying the ring, as Elrond begged him to do, he chose to keep the ring, despite it horribly burning his hand to pick it up immediately.
It's quite cool. Don't worry, Frodo. It's quite cool.
Isildur decides that rather than leave with the massive army of remaining elves and travel back to Rivendell with a large force and reunite with his son at Rivendell, he and his 3 sons that survived the war go to Minas Anor, the capital of Gondor, well, near capital of Gondor, so he can mentor Anarion's oldest son and allow him to become the next king of Gondor. Isildur decides that he will not take kingship of Gondor, leave that to Anarion's sons, and he will move himself to Arnor to replace his father as the High King.
Wait, sorry. There was 3 cities.
There were 3 cities.
Yes.
There was the capital of Arnor, where
Yes.
Elendil ruled from. There was Minas Anor and Minas Ithil. That was Isildur city and Anarion city, because Gondor had 2 joint kings.
Who is now in charge of Isildur city?
That city is just kind of left.
No one.
Well, it got sacked by Sauron.
Oh, okay. It's fucking ruins.
People do move back into it,
Yeah.
but it's not a ruling city.
No,
And Isildur kind of goes, you know what? We don't need 2 kings. It was a bit stuffy, my brother and I sharing. I'm going to move my household over to Arnor now that it's empty, and my brother's bloodline can rule Gondor.
So now there's 2 great cities.
Now there's 2, yeah,
And then there were 2.
But like,
and then there were
so
2.
you told me the ruins has no king and needs no king.
correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Still ruin.
He decides that he will take up the mantle of High King of Gondor and Arnor, though in the same way that Elendil respected Gondor having a separate king that isn't him, he does the same with his brother, his nephew, basically.
He's a little king under him.
Yeah. However, it was not to be, as he made the decision to not travel with any big armies back to Rivendell, instead a small warband of
You're
dudes.
fucking joking.
It is just him, his sons, and a small warband of fighters headed back to Arnor. I say small. It's not like a small, tiny force, but compared to like what could have been the massive army of elves and Elrond and everyone, it's a relatively small force. They are ambushed by a huge warband of orcs who have been drawn by the power of the ring that is still basically Sauron's voice calling out to his creatures nearby. They don't know that, of course. And all of them are slain. All 3 of Isildur's sons die in the fighting. Isildur, at the begging of his son, is urged to escape with the ring because they know how powerful the ring is. So Isildur takes off his armor and weapons, leaves them behind, puts on the ring, and dives into a river to attempt to escape. The ring, of course, anyone that has seen the movie will know that ring betrays Isildur, and he is shot full of arrows.
Yeah, it showed us the location and he got fucking shot.
I don't get that. What are you talking about? It showed his location.
It slips off his hand.
Well, yeah, it slipped. Oh, he just is visible.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fucking
Yeah.
stupid.
Because
And
the
all the
ring
orcs are like, river.
Yeah.
Kill him.
Just a man.
But there's also a degree of orcs and creatures that are subservient to Sauron are like drawn to the ring. So they would have been like, oh, there's something over there. Oh, man, shoot him.
Right, but they don't find the ring?
No, the ring is swept away downriver.
Fast river.
Yeah, it is.
It's a small ring. Look at it.
It's it's made of gold. It's dense, isn't it?
I mean,
That's
yeah,
why it
but
sinks.
fast.
Should have sunk to the bottom and stopped.
Not immediately.
Pretty immediately.
It's a fast river.
I don't think
I would be intrigued about simulations of this. Physics nerds out there, get me a simulation of the fucking river.
However, the consequences of this, of course, the High King of Arnor and Gondor being horribly murdered and all of his immediate sons who were trained up to be heirs being dead,
Can we
They don't make it
move?
home.
Rookie move.
leaving only one living heir, and that is the son that he left behind in Rivendell. The same son who's barely even come of age now, like he's a 10-year-old kid at this point-ish, maybe a little bit older, but barely come
That's
of
old
age.
enough.
They've been gone for 9 years.
Well,
Yeah,
the
the
siege
seven-
alone was
the
7
7-year
years.
siege.
That's
Trevor.
fair.
And all the other bits of
yeah,
fighting,
yeah,
there's
yeah.
also so they've probably been away for like 15 years of fighting.
What
at this
used to
point.
take ages back in the day? Do you remember, like,
Yeah.
you ever read, like, the Odyssey? That was like a 10-year war and it took 20
100
years.
years, 100 years war, man.
Yeah, it took 10 years for him to get home.
Fucking- Oh,
20 years-
sorry, like 20-year business negotiation. Dad's got to go to work. He's in the tall office building. Finally comes to a resolution. Walks out the front entrance, shot on the spot.
Yep,
Does not make
literally.
What the fuck, man?
This
In a
leads
7-year-long meeting.
this same son, however,
Feels like it.
because he's grown up in Rivendell, he has absolutely no connection, ties, or familiarity with the descendants of Anarion. But he is just suddenly told, "Oh yeah, you're the king of Arnor now, by the way."
Dude, you got to learn
So
how to be a
this
man.
now
instead of an elf.
sets up. This is the moment that the two kingdoms go from a very unified northern kingdom of Arnor, southern kingdom of Gondor, to being two very separate kingdoms with no unifying high king because they don't have any connection anymore. Anarion's son and all of his ancestors, they aren't going to give a flying shit about that random kid that was born in Rivendell.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. That's the problem again with man. The memory's very small, very
It is.
short.
It is.
They forget. I mean, you'd think some people would be like, "Nah, we were like blood brothers. We just fought a war together. Let's team up." But
Yep.
like humans,
But also,
humans
when
be
your
dumb.
kingdoms are quite far apart and it takes a long time to travel between them,
yeah, but they
And
have a
also-
phone.
yeah,
Get
but
on the phone. Call them up.
But also,
How you doing?
But also, if you're the other kingdom and it's like, oh yeah, the king is dead, but he's got a successor. It's a 10-year-old, and it's like, okay, do we want to go with that because that's the official correct word, or they're pretty far away. We could kind of do something better, I
A
bet.
10-year-old has been
especially
raised by
as-
elves as well.
they've got the other thing is as well, the king of Gondor now, the son of Anarion, has just spent an amount of years being nurtured, trained, and mentored by Isildur. So a lot of people in Gondor would be seeing why we're not making this guy the High King. He's got the right bloodline. He's Anarion's kid, and he's just been trained. Isildur spent more time with this guy than the kid in Rivendell. The kid got born in Rivendell, and Isildur left. He never fucking met him.
It's humans not respecting the rules.
Yep.
Classic.
Exactly.
Classic.
I mean, all I'm
So
saying
this-
is Gondor has no king and Gondor needs no king.
Yes. So this begins to set up the beginning of the fall of the kingdoms. So time
beginning
passes.
of the end.
The alliance between men and elves is fractured, and the two kingdoms of men begin to grow further and further apart. There is a long time of the good days, the golden ages, lots of progress, lots of building, whatever the fuck you want to say.
The Silver Ages, the not so bad ages, the kind of meh ages, you know.
And that leads to when it all starts to go wrong.
The bad
Oh.
age.
You're telling me that it didn't go wrong when the king on his way home after a 7-year siege got fucking shot?
Well, that they still had some good times after that.
Listen,
They had a couple good parties, you
it was
know?
a bad moment.
So Arnor's decline starts 800 years after everything goes down with Isildur.
Damn, they take a while to grieve.
High King Elandor dies in the year 861, and his 3 sons squabble over who should be king after him. Despite the fact one of them is oldest and one of them is youngest, they still get into a squabble over who should be king, and that splits the whole kingdom of Arnor into 3 separate kingdoms.
Classic.
Arthedain, Cardolan, and Ruadar. The oldest son tried to claim kingship over the whole thing, but was reduced to only ruling Arthedain because his brothers said, no, you aren't going to rule me, fuck you.
Why does Arthedain just sounds like a name?
Yeah.
It's not
Don't worry about it. Well, it isn't.
I think he lived on Jude Street when he grew up. Arthedain.
Arthedain.
Probably. And thereafter, the Dunedain of the North engaged in foolish, petty civil wars, sapping their strength while their enemies gathered in the shadows.
Oh, who would have
Classic.
Who'd have thunk it?
Classic man.
Strength.
And this leads us to the emergence of Angmar. So a great kingdom of orcs, trolls, and monsters called Angmar appears at Arthedain's northeastern border. Its king was in secret the chief of the Ringwraiths, the Screechy Nazgul
In
boys.
secret.
Well, they don't know
I
that
love
he's
you catering for me. It's so delightful. The screechy ones. Yes,
the screechy
I remember.
ones. But the fact that he's a Ringwraith, they just know that he is the Witch King of Angmar. They don't know this is where he gets the title Angmar from.
He's a witch king? Like they're like witch king, or they're like, oh, he's a witch king.
He's a Witch King, as in like sorcery and stuff.
Ooh,
Yeah.
scary.
He's not only a king, but also
A
witch.
Yep.
Burn him.
But the Dunedain don't know that he's a Ringwraith and tied to Sauron. They just know that he's some powerful sorcerer that's
Oh,
arisen.
yeah, because the
From the
Ringwraiths
east.
weren't always fucking ghosties. They
Yeah.
were.
Was he a
They were
ghost?
men at one point.
Was he
yeah,
a ghost? Is he a ghost?
He would be ghosty at this point.
Okay.
But in the last time they saw him, he probably wasn't.
Yeah. When did those kings of men get those rings?
Unspecified.
And those were not these kings of men. They were like other kings of men.
They would have been kings of like the northern men, the eastern
I
men, stuff
see.
like that.
Okay, cool.
Most likely. It's not specified.
This is very much like a fall of Rome kind of thing. 3 leaders.
Just wait.
Okay.
So then you get this barbarian-like faction of orcs
there
and
we
trolls. As this threat comes up, so this is a few hundred years after the whole civil wars started, Cardolan goes, you know what, maybe we have bigger fish to fry, and joins forces with Arthedain, and they team up.
Nice.
The descendants of the original kings at this point, of course.
Good on 'em.
And they end their perpetual war. Ruadar, however, refused to join
You
and ended up
fuckers.
sympathizing with Angmar and taking the side of the barbarians. Cardolan
Hey,
repeatedly
they're called
sends
trolls.
aid to Arthedain when they needed it, but eventually Cardolan was destroyed and Ruadar was completely annexed and joined Angmar. Fornost, the new capital city of Arthedain, was attacked, but the city successfully defended itself thanks to elves from Rivendell and other places
Damn.
in the
So
east
this is
coming
the
and helping.
last final alliance.
The second last final alliance.
Yeah, it's like when you change like a title of a document to final 2.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the last alliance.
The elves are like, well, for fuck's sake, we'll come and help.
Okay,
again.
one more time. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. It's like one last line. You know?
But while that's happening, all is not well down in Gondor.
All's not well fucking anywhere. Everything's shit. What are you talking about? But continue. Sorry. Apologies for my outburst.
That's fair. Gondor,
King is sick.
around the same time of the year 1400 of the Third Age, so this is like midst Angmar emerging and fighting, Gondor falls into its own civil war. When the people decide
Come
that
on,
because
Gondor.
the king is of mixed blood between his mother being from the Northmen and his father being of Numenor, they go, you're not pure House of Elendil / Arion, you're not proper king.
Dude, unless we're fucking breeding with our siblings, we're not fucking. These are
You
what are
can find
we're
someone else in
Targaryens?
the city to fuck. It's not that hard.
But like,
Um,
These are the two factions forming. Sorry.
I love it when history happens before our eyes. They fall into this huge civil war that they get to the end of it, but it basically keeps Gondor completely busy for the couple of hundred years that Arnor is having this fight, and that's why the elves have to come and help Arnor.
like, come on, Gondor, get your act together.
Then, just as things are starting to turn around and Arnor has fought back Angmar, Gondor's gotten through this whole civil war, In the year 1600, we get the Great Plague.
Oh, great.
Fucking amazing.
I love when things are going great.
Emerging
politically.
mysteriously from the east, just conveniently, near maybe where Mordor is, maybe a Great Plague comes forth and sweeps through Gondor.
Are you saying they have bioweapons in fucking
Sauron creates a plague.
It's a bioweapon.
He didn't need to. The orcs don't wash their hands. True.
Yeah, it was actually real natural. I'm surprised there aren't more plagues.
This sweeps through Gondor and heavily depopulates them. Many people move from the capital city of Osgiliath into Minas Anor. So Osgiliath starts to be depopulated and no longer be the big capital gem that it is. And it already took some damage during the Civil Wars. This is when it starts to fall into ruin and decay, like we see it in the movies. You know,
Yeah.
it's just ruins.
This is like the three towered ones, or is the one outside?
No, this is the one outside.
Oh, the one outside.
Yeah. Minas Anor, around this time, becomes Minas Tirith, what we know from the movies.
Yeah.
And they continue to expand it, obviously, and turn it into a bigger city. They didn't just have this one massive city and go, let's not make that the capital. But Gondor continues to go through. They do become incredibly weak at this point, and if anyone else of their enemies, because they're still having continuous fights with the Easterlings and the Corsair piratey people and all this shit, and like remnants of orc tribes, whatever, any one of them could have just immediately wiped out Gondor, but all of them were suffering from the plague as well.
Damn.
Go figure. Everyone suffers from the plague, right?
Yeah.
I do have
net buff.
I do
net
have a
debuff.
question.
Yes.
This is less of a this specific thing, but more
Yep.
of a general. I'm aware of like magic from the wizards and shit, and the elves know some stuff. Do we have like a? There's not. I assume there's not just fucking D&D clerics in this. What do we have like healer groups? And if so, are they from somewhere? Is that a specific thing, or is it just sort of a thing that's not known?
There is talk about like the Dunedain having healing capabilities and skills.
Okay.
You wouldn't necessarily say it's miraculous healing. It just kind of seems like a good sense of first aid and maybe knowing a little bit of herbalist unrealistic stuff.
Okay.
Of this particular plant could maybe cure this poison.
Okay, but there's not like a force or group that can be relied on for that sort of shit. This world doesn't have a healing group or force.
There probably would be, but it's not something that's written about.
It's not because sorry, my brain is going to fantasy and therefore to D&D, and it's like there in D&D I know where to go to get healing. This is much closer to Tolkien Real War, where there's medics and there's people who know medical shit, but there's not like magic
A healer. No, exactly.
Cool,
exactly.
cool.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Even the elves in the movies use like herbs to help
they do.
Frodo.
All the while, back in Arnor, the plague finally finishes off what's left of Cardolan, that one kingdom that kind of got fucked up by Angmar. They're gone now. Just
clean them up.
Bye-bye.
The remainder of their population moves into Arthedain, and Cardolan's lands just become ruins.
A lot of ruins.
However, Arthedain itself is not hit too badly by the plague, but they do continue to lose population, so they make the decision to cede some of their verdant farmlands to this new group of people that have showed up, hobbits.
Ooh.
And these verdant farmlands that they are given by the Arnor men become the Shire.
Really?
Yep.
I thought, when I imagined the map, I was thinking like Gondor was really far to the west, and Arthedain was right next to like Mordor, because they were fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So was
Arnor is right over near the Shire, other side of the Misty Mountains.
so was when wait, Arnor?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep. That's
And what
why
about Angmar? Where's Angmar?
Angmar's up north of the Misty Mountains.
Oh,
Angmar's close. Angmar's not that far from the Shire in the grand scheme of things.
Interesting, because I was imagining Angmar, because they're allied with Mordor, was close to Mordor.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was imagining. So I'm like, did they just go around Gondor to go fight these
Yeah,
guys?
no. Up the other way, up to the
Yeah,
north.
oh, interesting.
The
Okay.
northern wastes, if you want, like the North Pole, I guess.
That makes sense why they didn't think they were from Mordor.
Yeah,
because they came from the north.
100%. They just saw them as random tribes coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was
The hobbits appeared. Where from?
they're migratory.
Migratory, like the fucking birds.
Yep. And this is the point that they settle.
We talked about this in one of the other episodes. We don't know we're hobbits. They just appeared one day. They just went, whoever was writing it down went, oh, we found these really short guys. What the fuck?
Yep.
How long have they been there?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Because they're actually made for fucking walking.
Yep.
And that's why, I'm with it. Sometimes you forget, sometimes you
Nah,
remember.
it's good.
They
I
got
like
big feet.
They got big feet for walking, and that's just what they'll do.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. One of these days, they're going
And
to walk
then
from to Mordor.
couple hundred years later, by about the year 1800s, we've had about 200 years of plague. We get another thing arise suddenly out of nowhere.
Plague 2, Electric Boogaloo.
A group called the Wayne Riders begin raiding Gondor. They're called Wayne Riders because they ride a man named Wayne. No,
Wayne jet ski.
no, they are charioteers, and the chariots they ride are called Waynes. Not like no, like Wain.
Wayne.
I don't know.
That-
It thinks
Anyway.
you're trying to spell wine. Good job.
Don't worry.
I thought Wayne is a sad cat.
Basically, they're chariot riders who sweep through Gondor and cause a lot of fucking damage.
Oh, that's sick.
While they're
Gandalf.
riding through, this leads the people of Gondor into a desperate fight against them, where they manage to fight them off but not defeat them, meaning they can come back in the future, maybe. And it kind of leaves them a bit confused what their point was, because they didn't do all that much damage at this point. They just kind of caused some distractions for Gondor, and they discover that the Wayne Riders had perhaps been spurred on by an external force, as while the Wayne Riders were doing this, Angmar came back and began leading its own attack on Arnor again, or what was left of Arnor, and Gondor was completely unable to ride to their aid, as they were also dealing with these guys.
Are these guys like kind of Mongolian steppe kind of
very, very
horsemen?
similar.
Okay,
Very
cool.
similar. But if they were charioteers, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
They this also means that Arnor is unable to come down and help, meaning the Wayne Riders can escape and not be destroyed by Gondor. Basically, it's just shittery for the two kingdoms.
Yeah.
Then the new king of Arnor at this time, a man named Arafant, was being urged by his son, a young prince named Arvedui, who saw what was happening. He recognized that both kingdoms were being struck way too similar timing, and was starting to put two and two together, that Angmar and Mordor were connected, and the Easterling. He was starting to see that there was puppet strings happening in the background.
He's got that big board, he's got red
Yep.
strings, and he's like,
He has.
wait a second.
He's starting to figure it out.
They've all...
And he gets killed.
Yeah, then someone
yet.
stabs him in the back.
No!
He recognizes that they need to unify the two kingdoms. So he proposes a marriage. He tells his father to propose a marriage between himself, Arvedui, and the daughter of Gondor's new king, the king being Onderher, and his daughter being Fidel.
Hey, Dad, I want to solve everything. You just got to set me up with that hot-ass princess.
Yeah, trust
It'll
me.
solve
Trust
everything.
me. This will fix the world,
It'll
Dad.
fix me
Dad,
everything,
trust
Dad.
me.
I've worked it all
If you
out.
don't do this, we're all going to die.
If you look at this board, it's everything links back to hot
This
day.
union effectively saw the rejoining of ancient familial ties, with Arvedui tracing his lineage back to Isildur and Firiel tracing her lineage back to Anarion. If you go through enough, many steps.
Is this the
Hey guys, we used to be a family. Date me.
Are these the big cousins you were talking about? Like eighth something?
No.
No,
That's like one of the elves and like and Aragorn in the movie.
Oh, apologies. Yes.
That's a good
But
move.
it's another one.
Similar vibe. Of
Another one.
You could technically trace them back to the same ancestors.
Cool.
Technically. But, you know,
and
it's
that's
also
hot.
so
That's
fun.
hot for them.
Yeah, apparently. This, sorry, I lost my place for a second there.
Does that happen in England when multiple people can link themselves back to the royal family? They're like, you know, like they're like 30th down the line.
Yeah. But so this gives them a brief time of peace as Firiel goes to Arnor and marries into Arvedui. But this respite was only short-lived, as 4 years later, the Wayne Riders came back.
Wayne Gretzky.
This time, they joined up with the Haradrim in the south, and they did a simultaneous strike on Gondor from the north and the south, and challenged Gondor to split their forces. The king, Onderher, led the armies in the north, and one of his cousins, and a well-renowned general of Gondor, Earnil, led the army south. The Wayne Riders utterly annihilated, fucked, and destroyed the northern army, including the king and his sons. They're all dead. Bye-bye king, bye-bye sons, no more king.
Damn, is this the guy who wanted the marriage?
This is the one who married off his daughter.
Ah.
So his daughter's gone, but now him and all his sons are dead.
Well,
Um,
fuck.
But some survivors linked up with the southern Gondor army, which had utterly destroyed the Haradrim, and they joined together, charged straight at the Wainriders, who, instead of continuing on to fuck up Gondor, had a little celebration. They stopped their army's movements for a day and celebrated the fact they just killed the king and all of his sons.
Bad move, fucko.
But that delay meant that Eärnil was able to lead his whole army and just run them the fuck over and complete war of annihilation, wipe them off the face of the map.
I just want a little party, okay?
Yep.
I want a little celebration. I want to have a little lunch, you know? Little brunch.
No Christmas.
This leads
No
us
Christmas.
to
Die.
This leads us to the King of the North. The King in the North, eventually.
The King of the North!
As Arvedui and his now wife Firiel had settled in Arnor, but the prince found himself in a unique position. Two realms desperately in need of unification, and he in the position to lay claim to both, kind of. With Ondoher dead, his wife could rightfully claim rulership of Gondor, as old Númenorian laws dictated that when no clear heir is named, ascension should pass to the oldest living child, should there be one.
So progressive.
She should be the Queen of Gondor. Meanwhile, he is set to become the King of Arnor very soon as his father dies, and his father is very old. Meaning that he and Firiel's firstborn would be able to claim both.
Which
was his plan. That was his plan.
Yeah, as
he
claims
wanted
go.
to set up that marriage so he could bring the
strategic.
kingdoms. Yeah, 100%.
As claims go, that was pretty good.
It was.
It was.
However,
My past tense.
however,
no.
unfortunately, Arvedui's gambit was not to be, as Gondor's elite decided that Eärnil, the respected, well-loved general that just saved them, offered a stronger claim to the throne. As he was cousin of the king, he was still part of the bloodline.
Damn.
Yep, not entirely false, and you can understand why they'd go, why would we want to make her over in Arnor that far king into the north our ruler when we've got this guy who just Chad General saved us?
Damn. They really don't like the North
But,
people.
is General Man friends? Because they're cousins, they're family.
Yeah, they're friendly, but they don't want him to be their king. So they
He's
make
like, man, I really want you to be king, man. But the people, they want me to be king. I'm so sorry, man. It's only I can
just
do.
too
My
goated.
hands
and that unfortunately means that Arnor and Gondor would not have a shared ruler again. Eärnil, becomes the king of Gondor, and Arvedui, 20 years later, becomes the king of Arnor when his father dies, which leads us to his most desperate battle as Angmar strikes again. They've been continuing small trickle forces.
Angmar strikes back.
But they come back in force this time, and the ceaseless war reaches a new climax. Arthedain sends out desperate cries for help, but Gondor and the elves were too slow. The city of Fornost, capital of Arthedain, finally fell. Its people scattered. Arvedui sent his son Arnarth, the man who he had hoped would unify the two realms. He sent him south with the refugees and his wife. Meanwhile, he led a fraction of his army north to distract the orcs, and tried to fight them off as long as he could as he retreated further north into the Arctic regions. This leads us to the end of Arnor. Gondor and the elves banded together and resolved to avenge Arthedain and purge Angmar once and for all. Their meeting point was the elven city of Lindon, where Gil-galad had once resided many thousands of years ago, and Círdan, Beard Boy, now dwelt. I know you know about Beard Boy Elf. Yep.
Boatman.
Boatman, yes.
Oh, Boatman.
And
forget
Aranath,
about
who
Boatman?
arrives in Lindon with the refugees, urges them to send aid to his father. So Círdan sends a ship around the coast, hoping to find Arvedui in the north. Meanwhile, Aranath, the son, helps Gondor and the elves prepare for war. Círdan's ship finds Arvedui in the north, in a place called the Ice Bay of Foreshell, where he had been given refuge with some men of Losarth, or snowmen, as they're called in the lore. They're just kind of men that live in the north and don't really pay attention to any factions. They're pretty sick.
They're not snowmen made of ice?
Unfortunately not.
I'm seeing Olaf.
These people urged him not to board the ship, as it was treacherous conditions and it would not be safe to travel, but he was rushing to rejoin his son. Arvedui's boat was never seen again.
Fuck's sake.
Upon realizing that the boat was lost, Aranath was recognized as the next ruler of Arthedain or Arnor.
Dude, they're both in the ground.
He instead chose not to because the kingdom was lost, so he should bear no title. He then became the first of the exiled kings, the chief of the Dunedain Rangers. Sound familiar yet?
Those motherfuckers really.
This guy is
Aragorn.
the most direct descendant of Aragorn.
This is where we get the
Descendant or
Rangers.
ascendant?
Ascendant, yeah.
Yeah.
This is where we get the Rangers.
Aranarth led his newly banded rangers north of the rest of the army, and the elves with the newly resurrected Glorfindel, don't worry about it, he's just an elf that's come back from the dead, and the Gondorians, led by, well, we'll get to that. So Arnor is no more, and Gondor's line is perilous. That brings us to the end, the last heir of Anarion, the last of the great kingdoms of men, Gondor.
Yeah.
Anardil's heir, Eanor, who has now become the king of Gondor with the death of his father, led Gondor's forces north along with the elves and Aranarth, and they led all the survivors with, you'll be happy to hear, a large army of hobbit archers that go along with their
You
kingdom.
fucking shut up. They did not get the hobbits
Hobbit
to join.
archers.
That's fucking bullshit.
The hobbit archers go to the Battle of Fornost.
How can they hold a bow?
Wide stance. They got big feet to plant
Powerful
themselves.
feet.
Powerful stance.
The hobbits are an important part of the Battle of
You ever
Fornost.
see those motherfuckers that
you
use
think they-
archery, that use bows
Yeah,
with their feet?
Yeah,
Big
they think they're doing
feet,
that.
Yeah.
They lie back and they use
Some of
their
them
feet.
definitely are.
Oh my god.
Mostly because
The-
they can't bother getting up.
This would go down in history as the Battle of Fornost. And ultimately, Eanor, being as mighty and powerful a general as his father, would lead the combined Free Peoples to victory over the Witch King of Angmar, who is now in this moment of fighting revealed to be one of the Nazgul, as in the fighting I believe they like reveal him as a spirit and then they figure out what's really been happening between Mordor's remnants and Angmar.
It's a big reveal.
It is a big reveal. Eanor wished to challenge the Witch King and fight 1-on-1, 1v1 me bro.
Mano a mano.
However, Eanor's horse was terrified and forcefully ran away from the Nazgul against Eanor's wishes.
Just get off, man.
By the time he got control of his horse and returned to the Witch King had fled.
Damn.
Glorfindel then stopped Eanor from chasing after him because he was going to chase the Witch King off into the north, which would have been suicide. Glorfindel, the Elven Lord, put a hand on Eanor's shoulder and went, "Never by the hand of man shall he fall."
So what? Glorfindel put the blessing on him?
Glorfindel is the one that speaks the prophecy that would be realized.
Glorfindel, you piece of shit. What the fuck? Why would
Yep.
you do that?
Setting prophecy that will be realized many years later. Eanor, for all his battle glory, was perhaps not the most stable king, as he never had any interest in family or raising offspring, leaving his line vulnerable, as he was now the sole heir king and everything of Gondor.
Dude, so this line of this guy.
Yep,
was-
Anarion.
Anarion.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm a bit confused where his father came from. I'm a little lost. His father was the king of Gondor?
Eanor's father.
Yeah, was the
So
guy.
Enardil was cousin of the king, so he would have just been
Was the general guy?
yeah.
Okay,
general
this
guy.
is the general guy.
Yeah, general guy's son.
And the guy who went south to become the ranger was the guy who was supposed to become king, and they didn't
Yeah.
like him or not.
yeah, exactly.
Cool, got
Yeah.
it. I mean,
well, they didn't want his mum to be the queen.
yeah,
of
they
Gondor.
didn't like the
Yeah.
bond. Yeah,
They snubbed her. They snubbed his mum.
They were a
therefore
bit
he got
racist.
Snubbed. Yeah,
Yeah.
sexist. I think you mean.
Depends on the reasoning.
Didn't they like it because she was North? I mean?
Oh, sorry. No, yeah, that's fair.
yeah,
That's
being
fair.
racist.
They didn't
Yeah,
really care.
yeah,
About,
yeah.
He needed a queen.
There's
He just
no
didn't like
mention of
North
her
part.
being a woman. It's
Yeah.
fine.
They were gay and they were hot.
No, I just thought Matt was meaning something else. So the Witch King escapes, but Angmar as a kingdom is destroyed. All of the monsters are defeated and slain, and the north just turns into this desolate wasteland, which is kind of what we see in the movies. It's just the Shire and not a lot else. There is just empty mountains, ruins, ruined watchtowers, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
The ruined watchtower Weathertop, which you will have seen near the start of The Lord of the Rings, the place where the hobbits cook up a little meal and then the Nazgul find them and then they stab Frodo and he's all like, "Oh!" Yeah.
I never really.
Sam was dumb as fuck for making those
Yep.
goddamn
Yep.
bacon sausages.
Tomatoes, nice crispy bacon.
That's
Yep.
the one.
I've always thought what was. I never actually thought. I never actually thought about what that ruins was.
That was the watchtower where Arnor kept its palantir.
Oh, interesting.
You thought that Tolkien didn't fucking know? He may have had the fucking hobbits appear from nowhere, but that one goddamn ruin's got a full
But that's
historical
also
backing.
the reason why
That's their old phone.
Aragorn. That's also the reason why Aragorn knew about it and wanted to go there, because it was a place that was significant to his forebears.
Is it okay?
But
It was a vibe. It was a good
Yeah.
vibe.
I'm flexing my fucking muscles in my brain so hard right now.
yep.
Is that anywhere near where they found Sting?
not completely far away.
Does that have anything to do with anything?
Yes and.
Fuck.
Well, Sting is just a collection of blades that were elven blades that got lost in wars. So it's very possible they could have been wielded in one of these wars and then abandoned.
Cool.
It's possible.
Just putting
Cool,
the,
so we-
the
so we
very
ca-
little I know
so we
together.
have,
No, that's fine.
We have the King of Gondor.
So we have he goes back to Gondor.
Yeah.
And to wrap it up, a couple, probably, I think it's about 100 years after the Battle of Fornost. So Fornost is finished, Arnor as a kingdom is gone. Everyone, all of the men that lived up there fall into different settlements, places like Bree, the random city the hobbits go to.
Yeah.
Cheese, like the cheese.
The Prancing Pony.
The Prancing Pony Inn. All those people, those are people that once upon a time would have been Arnor men.
There you go.
Yeah, but Arnor's kingdom is gone. It's dissolved. Then the Nazgul, the Witch King, the rest of the Nazgul along with the Witch King, capture the old ruins of Minas Ithil, siege the ruins and kill off the defenders that were inside the fortress. They capture it and they rename it to Minas Morgul, which is another place people will remember in the movies. It's the big glowing palace that the ring race ride out of. That used to be Isildur's home. That's why it's such a big middle finger to all the men, because it's like, Isildur was like your hero. Yeah, we took his castle, bitch.
That makes a lot of sense. And then that's why it's because that was really close to Mordor.
Yeah.
That's why they can climb that big cliff to get into Mordor.
Yeah, because that was
Wow.
built partially to watch over that area.
Yeah.
But then the Nazgul take it.
Interesting.
And then, because it is such a historic, important... And sorry, I misspoke before. It is this point that Minas Anor becomes renamed to Minas Tirith, which more translates to Tower of the Guard, because it is becoming a more guarded time, because they can see Mordor's properly rising again in the east.
But that's Gondor now.
Yeah, this is now Gondor as we know it. With
Yeah.
Minas Tirith as the capital, Osgiliath as these ruins in between, and Minas Ithil lost to the Ringwraiths.
Yeah.
At this point, Eanor, in Minas Tirith, being the final king of Gondor, starts getting messages from the Nazgul. The Witch King starts sending him messages over the span of about 30 years, repeatedly taunting Eanor and calling him a little bitch for running away from their last challenge.
Didn't the other guy run away?
Only after Eanor ran off. It's kind of like Witch King standing there like,
I'm ready to fight.
and then he runs off on his horse and
like,
does a few
"Fuck this
donuts,
shit."
and he's like, okay.
He turns around and walks off.
Yeah, basically.
And by the time he comes back, he's gone.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if your internet died. The other guy is declared the winner because you didn't show up on time.
Yeah, you lost the match.
Your horse
And so
died.
the Witch King
horse
starts taunting the fuck out of Eanor and going, bitch, 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 you wouldn't fight me, bitch.
So is he sending like messages or like on the planer on the phone? Is he calling him up?
Palantir? My
Palantir.
God.
I don't actually know. It would actually be really interesting if it's through the Palantir. I always assumed it was just messengers, like Dark Numenorians and stuff that can go into their land.
Sorry, that's way funnier, actually. A messenger rides up. My lord, we've received a message from outside the gate. Little scroll, little
Fuck you,
little tiny wax
coward.
seal, tiny little hand on. He's like, message, bitch.
Right. I love it.
I do like him. Also, like the idea of him calling him in the middle of the night. Going, it's like, "Hello,
Hey, bitch.
hey, you little bitch, you ran away, you coward. Come fight me."
Yep. So they start taunting the fuck out of Eanor, the final battle, and calling him out for his cowardice in the Battle of Fornost. And eventually, after I genuinely think it's about 20 years of this taunting, King Eanor, he's also pissed about the fact that the Ringwraiths are using Isildur's castle. That's a big middle finger alone, combined with the taunting, pushes him over the fucking edge, and after about 20 to 25 years of taunting, he is overcome with wrath and rides out with a small company of knights to Minas Morgul to accept the challenge.
Of course he does.
They were never heard from again.
Of course they weren't.
And so ended the House of Anarion, and the
You
final
fucking
two
idiot.
kingdoms of men crumbles away, and the rule of Gondor is passed on to the stewards.
Gondor has no king, and Gondor needs no king.
No,
Yes.
they just ran out of them.
They
Also,
just
he had-
ran
he
out of
Just
them.
ran out.
They really did.
They went, we
This guy-
tried, we fucking replaced them, we put a new guy in, we tried this.
This guy also had he had 100 years to produce an heir.
Yeah, I also thought about that. Why did he not
Frank don't
fuck?
work.
Was he fucking in this time?
Tolkien didn't really write about them fucking, but
Come on.
yeah. It is interesting that he didn't produce an heir in all that time. Maybe there could be many different reasons behind it.
Maybe he was gay.
He could have been gay. He could have just been infertile, which could also be like symbolic of the like downfall of man. But yeah, it's really
Sometimes you just can't get it up. You know what I mean? Over 100
yeah.
years.
The final thing I'll say, because it's interesting when you look at it, I've heard people posit a theory before that Lord of the Rings, you have to look at it through the lens of the movies, the books. They're actually a post-apocalyptic setting. There's all these ruins, there's these ruined kingdoms, it's a plague-ravaged place, which it is.
It's definitely like the dystopia, like the downturn. I mean, that's always been like, it's very Tolkien to be like, everything used to be better and everything will slowly get worse.
Yeah.
Nothing will ever be as good as it used to be.
Yeah.
And it's very that old man nostalgia.
Yeah. But it does get to the point of the Fourth Age being bad. But anyway,
we've already gone in a post-apocalyptic world for the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Shut up.
You piece of shit.
But anyway, we're going to end there because otherwise we'll keep talking for way too long.
We've already talked for way too long,
we
dude.
have.
You can see the timestamp on the
I
screen.
know, that's what I'm saying. We're
Cooked
wrapping it up.
already.
We're
It's
wrapping
fucking
it up.
11:21 p.m. We've got to go to bed.
I gotta say one more thing though.
Do you have to?
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm just
he
saying
does.
it makes way more sense that Boromir and Gondor doesn't want Aragorn because he's like not their line.
Yep.
It makes way more sense why they didn't actually want him to be king. That
He's a
makes,
Sealdor's heir, not a Anarion.
exactly. It makes way more sense.
Yep.
Sorry, that's not one of the
No,
points. I was
100%.
always confused. Like, dude, he has king blood. Put him in.
Yep. And he does, but he doesn't. Because
Yeah,
yes, Isildur
wrong.
was kind of originally a king of Gondor, but really the house of Anarion
Yeah.
Gondor. And that house is
Interesting.
dead. That line is broken. But yeah.
Interesting.
Because they were all fucking morons and they kept killing themselves or going into wars.
Well, they had choice of angry general or queen across the earth. We'll take angry general. Oh no, he died.
because he was too angry.
They also said their king was like a crazy conspiracy
Yes.
theorist. Remember
Yes. Anyway, thank you for listening.
If
and
you
if
wanna
you've
hear-
enjoyed this episode, you can go listen to our other Lord of the Rings content. Go check out the Numenor episode.
Yeah.
Go check out the Elfin Lord's Hunger Games.
That was a really fun episode.
It was a fun episode. But anyway, Matt would like to say a thing about our wonderful patrons, or Guy would like to say a lovely thing about our...
No, I got it, Chief. I got
thank
it.
you so
I got
much.
this prepared.
Thank you so much to our Patreons, our loyal lawkeepers. Thank you much to our prestige lawkeepers, Bong the Bard, Josh from Maine, and Shadow. Thank you to our novice lawkeepers, Blizz Bandit, Dan Dubs, Jacob from Norway, Josh Cowles, Loading Name, Luke Newcomb, Mike Grain, Tiani Wilson, Uranian Games. And Uranian Games. That list is getting long. That list is getting long. Thank you so much to our lawkeepers.
That's really good. I'm proud of that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and you can become a lawkeeper today and get extra content like minisodes, scripts, and some stuff early. So get on that.
And the number of stars you rate us on Spotify or anywhere is the number of boats you escape Numenor with.
The number of stars you rate us is the number of times you can come back after your whole kingdom falls and the entire line of kings have died. And you get back up and get back in there.
The number of stars you give us is the number of kingdoms that you and your spawn get to collectively have a wonderful time controlling, where nothing goes wrong until it does, but that's not going to be your problem because you're going to be dead.
Oh, yeah.
Or it's the number of wings on your Baelor. Let's go.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening. And just as the realms of men lost all their kings, we will say good night. Is it good night? It's good morning first, isn't it?
No, we
It's
say
up to
goodnight
you,
first.
Chief.
We
You can
usually
do
say
whatever you
goodnight.
want.
I'm saying good night first on the age of men. Good
That's
night.
fair.
Yeah.
And as you pick a new fucking king because you don't want a goddamn 10-year-old to rule your civilization, we wake up to a good goddamn morning.
Woo!
And as you watch your noble, mighty king, the last of a great bloodline, strip and dive into a river, only to get shot full of arrows, give him a salute and say, "Sayonara, Isildur."
Sayonara, Sonic.
Sayonara, Isildur.
Sayonara.
Isildur.
Thank you for listening to Living by the Law. If you enjoyed our podcast, please leave a review, tell your friends, and if you're feeling extra generous, become an official lawkeeper by joining our Patreon today. Follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Living by the Law. All links are in the description, and thank you in advance. We have been, and always will be, living by the law.
Thank you for your company, and good night.